May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer.
Amen.
Amen.
The Christmas story is so full of details that we could ponder and meditate on them for weeks and weeks. And yet in the best of years, we only get 2. But then as I read the stories of Christmas in the Gospels, especially this morning telling of Jesus 12 years later, I hear maybe for one of the first times how reverence and awe were some of the central themes throughout all the Christmas stories. Mary with reverence for her God and for herself. Joseph, who shows reverence for God and for Mary. The shepherds, the awe of the angels, and reverence enough to go and see for themselves whether what they had been told was true. And the animals in the stable to share their home. There's a delightful cartoon of the cows standing around the manger. And one of them says to the other, I know he's the Son of God, but he's lying on my dinner. And the wise men. What kind of awe and reverence does it take to leave everything and go find the King of the Jews when you yourself are not Jewish? To follow your faith, your heart, into unknown territory. The stories that we read so often seem so certain, as if everyone knew their role, knew all their lines, and knew all their placement in the stage of life of this great drama that this story depicts. But I can't imagine that was so. One of the delights for me of a Christmas pageant is often where there is that bit of confusion, bedlam even, that can be seen, because I think that indicates more what Christmas Eve was really like. Jesus comes in human form to wake us up, to show us a new way to see, a new way to be. How much editing has happened in order to take this Son of God, born as a lowly human in a manger, among the animals, with the working class shepherds, and visited by foreign kings, and who died on a cross as an enemy of the state, denied and turned over to the authorities by those who shared his faith. How much editing does it take to make this revolutionary person into one who is acceptable at the least and revered at best to the world? As I hear the story this morning from the Gospel of Luke, I can't help but wonder how far we have wandered from the lessons that Jesus would have us learn. The importance of love, that everyone is important, that we are all connected. How far have we wandered to create someone we can worship rather than follow? I was fortunate in seminary and a few times afterwards to meet Archbishop Desmond Tutu, to hear him preach, to experience him celebrating the Eucharist and baptism even, to get to chat with him as we carried our trash to the bins at the guest house at Virginia Seminary. I saw a man who was so filled with the love of Jesus that it spilled out everywhere. If this love and this joy had had physical form, something like confetti, it would have taken several people following him constantly with large brooms just to sweep up all the love and the joy that he exuded. In the words of Rowan Williams, I have a theory which I started elaborating after I met Archbishop Desmond Tutu a few times, that there are 2 kinds of egotists in the world. There are egotists that are so in love with themselves that they have no room for anybody else. And there are egotists that are so in love with themselves that they make it possible for everybody else to be in love with themselves. They are at home in their skins. It doesn't mean that they are arrogant or self-obsessed or think they are faultless. They have learned to sense some of the joy that God takes in them. And in that sense, Desmond Tutu manifestly loves being Desmond Tutu, and there's no doubt about that. But the effect of that is not to make me feel frozen or shrunk. It makes me feel that just possibly, by God's infinite grace, I could one day love being Rowan Williams in the way that Desmond loves being Desmond Tutu. I often think that Jesus must have had some magnetic persona that drew people to him, often without knowing why they were drawn. That Jesus exuded the same love and joy and acceptance that we experienced in Desmond Tutu. And for both of them, it was a reflection of the love that they felt from God. We aren't called to worship Jesus. Rather, we have been called to follow him. And I believe that what we are called to do is to fall madly, deeply, completely in love with God. Until we can feel that love from God flowing through us to one another and to absolutely everyone and everything else. What absolute freedom it seems to be to feel loved completely and to love in the same way. As we put away the decorations, or not, Henry VIII celebrated Christmas for 40 days. Please ponder that love came down to us in that tiny babe, wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in the manger. That we are so completely loved that God came as one of us so that we could learn just how beloved we are, just how we are called to love. So may you know that by God's infinite grace, you are called to love being you, because you are loved that much already.